Hello, welcome back to Human Resource Management, and we are on the fourth chapter, Selection of Human Resources. Just a quick recap. The previous chapter we have talked about recruitment, right? How do we recruit? Where do we go to find new recruits or to find applicants? What are the methods to use? And here we are going to talk about what we are going to do with the applications that are being sent to us. And that is what selection of human resources, right? So selection, we have the selection procedure and we also have the selection process. So we will discuss these two major topics under selection. And selection is a process. It can define as a process of determining from the applicants who can meet the job requirements and can be offered the vacant position in the organization. So that is a selection. That is a process of determining, of choosing. No. And there are different departments of the organization that make personnel requisition. So if you are in a company, there are different departments. There are production area, assembly area, etc. So those departments are going to fill up forms. The usual process or the formal process that there is a requisition form or normally called personnel requirement form. Here in the university, we have personnel requisition form that is being filled out by the department who wanted to hire a staff or a teacher, etc. So these are forms. And in the form, you have to make sure that uh, they include the following. Una is the positions and number required. So ibutang nimo dito, like for example, we need a staff. Okay, and then pila ka buok, so one or two. Job specification. So staff that is going to receive and send outgoing messages, outgoing emails, set meetings, do bookkeeping, do filing, etc. Mo na yung mga ibutang dito sa job specifications. Then the personal qualities needed for a worker to do the job. So dapat ibutang nimo dito unsay mga kinahanglan, mga personal niya qualities like willing ba siya mag OT, friendly ba dapat, ano siya. So mo na imong buhaton. Those are the things that you need to put in the form if you are the requisitioning party. Um, and there are procedures that we are going to follow in selection in getting the most qualified applicants. So number one, or stage one, we have establishing selection procedure. So here we have to establish unsay procedure nga atong gamiton, because with that you will be able to get the best candidate that has a clear understanding of a job's components. So kung tama ang imong procedure, tama po ang mga tao nga imong ma-hire. Next is identifying and choosing selection criteria, predictors, and instruments to be used. Okay, so you have to identify and choose selection criteria. Um, Weighting or rating job duties can help you assess the qualifications of competing candidates, because there are so many candidates that are going to apply. So you have to give weight, you have to rate, you have to give grades on their skills. And each skill or knowledge area or ability is rated according to its importance to the job. Okay, so for example, you're looking for a staff. So ang applicant na iyang gibutang dito is paspas siya mo type and maayo siya sa filing. Ang isa ka applicant cum laude, maayo sa math, maayo mo istorya, etc. But if you are going to rate them, asa imong pilion? Of course, you are looking for a staff. You are not looking for a speaker. You're looking for staff. You are going to go to the person who has a fast typing speed, di ba? Kay mo man yung kinahanglan, mag-minutes man ng staff, mag-minutes, maghimog mga documents. So dapat paspas siya na so that he will be efficient. There are skills also that will be given less importance kanang dili na kay nimo siya pansinon. For instance, it can be easily acquired or is seldom used. So katong mga skill nga dali ra siyang makatunan or bihira siyang gamiton, so dili na kaayo to nimo tagaag wait. Dili nimo siya tagaan kaayo og bili. Number three, gathering and evaluating information about the applicants. Okay, so naka-receive naman kag applications. What you're going to do is you have to evaluate them through their application form. So it's very important you are going to send your application form because that's part of what you are going to evaluate. Maayo ba ni siya mo makipag-communicate, 'di ba? Makita na nimo dito ang communication skills niya. Nag-send kintahay sa imong email, wala malay cover letter, wala malay murag nagkurat ra ka, di ba? Para sa atong gihimo nga nag-email mo, gi-attach na ninyo ang application ang resume, and then wala man lay, hi, hello, this is me, I'm applying, ano ba? Kay usually mga HR managers, makareceive sila ng email, walay subject, dapat na gyud siya subject line ang imong email. Pag walay subject line, di sila kay unsa na, i-delete na lang na nila sa kadaghan sa email nga ilang nadawat. So i-delete na lang na nila kay walay subject line unless gibutangan mo application for ana, di ba? So makita na nila, they are going to keep it. And if possible, you have to you can actually see their skills and their personality through interview, but the best option also or a combination you can do is to call or contact their previous employers that may give more reliable information. So kadto man yung previous employer ang makasultig unsa ka, gi-fire ba ka tungod kay tapulan, gi-fire ba ang employee because ng hilabot or dili maayo yung performance, etc. So dito na nimo mahibaw-an. And if possible, try to verify evidence of specific skills, knowledge, or abilities at more than one point in the selection process. So dili lang sa interview, no? At in the selection process naman ang pagpasa sa application form. So you have to verify pag-contact sa employer, verify na nimo. No, sa interview, ma-verify po na nimo. Stage 4 is the making communication decisions to select or reject. So you have to make communication decisions whether it's either you select or reject the applicant. Um, uh, okay, I mean, you have to leave a positive impression. You have to make that connection. Imong ipa-feel pod sa aplikante that they did their job. They did what they can do. So usually this is how the rejection letter looks like. Right? You have to put your date, the name of the applicant. Then you have to thank them for the interest in applying for whatever position that you posted in the company. And then you have to say we regret to inform you or I am sorry, but usually regret ang gikuan na niya ginagamit kay sorry man gud murag na negative connotation. So we regret to inform you that you were not selected. So wala ka na dawat. There were over pila ka applicants and we could choose only one or two. We only need one or two. And we enjoyed meeting you and we're particularly impressed with your unsa man ang positive kay mo nakita sa iya. Then please keep us in mind in the future. See, you are letting the person know that you that there's a possibility nga makatrabaho gyapon siya dito. So there's a positive relationship and you have to thank them for their time and interest and wish well in your career. So therefore, para maiwasan nang naman gyud it's a reality nga ang uban applicant pag nang-apply, pag na-reject, they take it negatively. Kana bitong wa man sila i-inform nga na-reject dai sila, wala sa madawat. So ilang libakon ang company, ilang siraan sa ubang applicant. So maglisod kag pangitag best candidate if wala na kay kanang positive nga image kay gisiraan naman ka sa previous nga nag-apply. So you have to make sure that you give a rejection letter, right? So the question is, who makes the selection decisions? Kinsa man na siya? HRD or executives? Actually, the HRD is just the facilitating part of the company. They facilitate. They collect your request from the departments. They post the job offering. They receive the application letter, and then you evaluate, you interview, etc. until makakuha mo top candidates. But the final decision is actually on the executives, right? The reason behind that is because usually the executives would want someone they can trust, no? Uh, they also want to make sure that they are hiring the right people. So the HRD is facilitating that, and then the executives will decide, right? And also, the in the process, we also have selection and job matching. So, what do you mean by this? First is you have the personal qualities and requirements. Um, you have to see this is going to match with based upon an evaluation on the applicant's strengths and weaknesses. And then the result of this evaluation are then measured against the job standards for the position. So you have to match the personal quality and the job requirements. Also, second is the positive and negative factors. So, sa may pasabot ana, ang aplikante man gyud has positive and negative factors, and the process of determining these factors requires a thorough analysis of the individual's qualification. So you have to be keen to identify the positive and negative factors of the applicant. And then the test and interviews. Tests and interviews commonly focus on the applicant's social abilities as well as his task abilities. So muna imong makita dito Then you will also see the what you call that, the personality niya, etc. So ingana ang imong trabahoon as an HR manager. And then we will go to the selection process. The employer can think of the selection process as a series of hurdles, no, or blocks that applicants must clear in order to obtain the job. And each hurdle eliminates some applicants from contention. So, mura na siya bitog kanang sa na siya marathon, diba? Na mga hurdle nga imong lampasan. Then every stage, pag dili ka kalampas ana nga stage, then madrop na ka. So, there are only a few applicants that will be able to surpass the blocks or the hurdles. So, and that is why in order for us to determine kinsa ray mag-go through sa hurdles, kinsay makaabot sa finish lines are by following the selection process. There are 7 processes that we are going to follow, and number 1 is the preliminary. So we have the preliminary screening, the application form, testing and evaluation of results, in-depth interview, evaluating references, physical examination, and then the placements. So we'll go to the preliminary screening first. On the preliminary screening first, we have to, this is the first step in the assessment of an applicant, and this is the initial interview or preliminary screening. This step deals with obvious factors such as voice, dress, physical appearance, personal grooming, educational background, professional training, and experience if there is any. Okay, so there are traits that you are going to there are traits and qualities that are important to consider in the preliminary screening process. The first one is the aptitude and interest. And something aptitude and interest. Um, this indicate the natural abilities, the capacity for learning, and the desire to do certain things of the applicant. So diyan mo makita kung naa ba siya ability, naa ba siya capacity to learn, and naa ba siya desire to do other certain or other things. The next is the attitudes and needs, or wrong spelling. Attitudes and needs. So attitudes and needs indicate an applicant's frame of mind. So unsa may iyang frame sa iyang hunahuna. Emotional and mental maturity. So makita nimo iyang maturity. Sense of responsibility and authority, and future motivation. Next is analytical and manipulative abilities. Analytical and manipulative abilities indicate our thinking process, ang intelligence level niya, ang ability to use knowledge effectively in any assigned task. So, if you can remember, 'di ba, na yung mga questions sa interview nga inyong giagihan is unsaon nimo pag-ini, unsaon day paghimo og sanina, na yung mga question nga ingana. And how do you do? Like, for example, pa-overtimon ka sa imong boss and then you have a family nga activity. Diba? Unsa imong buhaton? Mo answer din ang applicant og naka-leave naman ko, ma'am. Let's say, for example, mingon pod kintahay nga, o mingon yung boss nimo, dili ka mo overtime, i-terminate ka. So, unsa imong buhaton? So, diha makita ang mo ang analytical and manipulative abilities. Then the next one is skills and technical abilities. Some skills and technical abilities. Um, this is going to indicate the ability to perform specific operations and technical aspects of the job. This results from education, training, experience, and it is going to it tends to predict what can do if properly placed, oriented, developed, and motivated. Right? So mapansin niyo sa inyong question sa katong gi-interview mo na ay mga pangutana nga na ato gipangutana og unsa man nga klase nga tela ang maayong buhaton, or kining akong blazer makita ba nimo nga naa ba ni siya padding or wala. So diha man na gina-test gud ang imong technical abilities. The next will be the health, energy, and stamina. So makita you have to see if the the person is physically fit. So there's a physical ability to perform the assigned tasks satisfactorily. So dili lang basta-basta, or dili lang bahala na, especially those involving manual and managerial duties. So dapat makita po na siya sa pag-interview. Pag i-interview, walay ka latoy-latoy, walay dili kaayo makatubag, di ba? So diha na siya tan-awon. And then the last one is the value system. So many value system. It is going to provide a clue to motivation niya, goals niya, objectives niya, and work values and perseverance. Right? So naay mga nga question sa may plano nimo after, no? What inspires you to be an electrician? What inspires you to be a garment fashion designer? Ano siya na mga inga nga pangutana, di ba? So those are the things that you are going to look for in the preliminary screening. And usually makita mo sa interviews. And for interview, we have different styles of interviews, right? So we have the structured interview, we have the unstructured interview, and we have the panel or round the table interview. Ang structured interview, nag-follow ni siya og set of procedures, and ang interviewer sets the lead. So ang interviewer gyud ang mag-lead sa conversation. Directive interview is usually structured. Structured interviews are usually more effective in promoting equal opportunities for all applicants. So naka-structure siya, naa siya'y flow, naa siya'y series of questions nga ipangutana. Then the second one is the unstructured interview. Something unstructured. This is where the applicant takes the lead. The unstructured interview guide provides no specific reference, and ang applicant is given a free hand in talking about himself, and the interviewer makes an assessment. So usually, ginabuhat ni siya, like for example, tell me about yourself. So kanang tell me about yourself is a very, very simple question, but it is actually going to test your ability. Kung saan mo pag-introduce mo kagalingon, saan mo pagbaligya nga ma-hire ka. Muna siya. Then the next is the panel or round table interview. So ang panel round table interview, it is done for managerial and supervisory employees. No, the applicant meets a panel of interviewers and seeks to facilitate the polling of judgments with respect to the candidates and acquaint the applicant with prominent members of the working organization. So, diyan ay makita nga, daghan sila, panel or round table interview. Okay? Right? So, that is the preliminary screening part. The second process of selection is the application form. So, companies have different styles of form. So, naa sila yung mga official application form. Like for example, if you are going to apply for a government position, naa kay fill upan nga PDS, no? Personal data sheet, and na kay or na po kay applyan, na po kay fill upan nga application form mismo. And then aside pa na sa imong letter of intent that you want to apply, and then your resume, of course. And then there are also other companies that they use graphology, which means that they are going to require you to write a letter with a specific number of words. No, pag kita write an intent letter that is around 250 words. So you have to be careful. Okay, that's a part of a test. So you can also do that, no, para ma-test nimo kung maayo ba siya mo follow instructions, right? So that's the second process of selection. The third one is the testing and evaluation results. So testing in the HRM or human resource management is commonly associated with the prediction and selection of subsequent performance on the job. Tests are still the commonly used instruments for determining the qualifications and talents of the applicant for a particular job. It is the most objective of all selection instruments in the selection process. So, mo na ang pinaka-objective. Kay kung sa iyang score diha, that is going to be the score. No? Unlike sa interview, pwede mo guna subjective. Kay pwede mang kita pag panel interview, naamoy interview, ang iyang tubag pwedeng okay sa ako di pwede pong dili okay sa imong kauban nga nag-interview, di ba? That's very subjective. But test nga imong gi-provide are very objective. Wala emotion nga naikuan. And cannot be influenced by you, right? So, what are the what are the types of tests that we can do? We have the intelligence test, aptitude test, interest test, personality test, and the achievement or proficiency test. So, what are the intelligence tests? Intelligence test, it is widely used to measure mental ability or general learning ability. No, intelligence, it tests nimo ang iyang IQ. The outstanding feature of this type of test is its ability to predict the general capacity for learning or problem solving niya. Okay, so ang example sa mga test ani makita ninyo sa internet niyo ni search the Culture Fair Intelligence Test or the Raven's Progressive Matrices Test. So I have an example of the Raven's Progressive Matrices Test. The proponent here is John C. Raven. Siya na ang nag-formulate ana. And then the age nga pwede mo kuha ani is 6 years old and above. And then the variable, sa ginatanaw, intelligence. Then item, so na ay set of questionnaires, total use that's 60 points, and then time, there's no time limit but can be finished within 60 minutes or 1 hour. Okay, mo na isang example sa intelligence test. The next test is the aptitude test. Aptitude aptitude test, it measures the person's capacity to learn a given job. No, katuman tong imong skill to learn, provided there is adequate training. This type of test is usually administered for mechanical and clerical positions. So, example ani differential aptitude test And second is occupational aptitude survey and interest or OASIS aptitude test. So, unsa man ni siya? Kinsa may proponent? Proponent is si George Bennett. Ang tawag sa iya is differential aptitude test. Age, 13 years old and above. Variable, so daghan kay tan-awon nga variable. Verbal reasoning, numerical ability, so na mga solve. Abstract reasoning, katong makita niyo abstract, katong na drawing bitaw, say sunod, ano siya. Clerical and speed accuracy. So, pwede kang mukuan na sa typing test, naibahimo sa imong typing test, napoy clerical speed and accuracy 2, mechanical reasoning, spatial reasoning, language usage, spelling and grammar. And the time nila, so nag-vary. Total of 638. Oh, I mean, ang item, 638. And then the time is a total of 181 minutes. Yeah, test. So 181, that will be around 3 hours. 3 hours and 1 minute. So the next test is the interest test. Interest test is it is derived from hereditary and environmental factors. It tries to predict the success in the job of the person's interest and the job are properly matched. So makita nimo ang ilang interest. What are the samples? The Thurstone interest schedule and then the Thruststone interest schedule, and then the occupational. So the same sa kanina. But my example here is the Thruststone interest schedule. The proponent is Thruststone. And the age, adults lang ang makakuha ani. Variable, daghan siya variable nga gipangita like the physical sciences, behavioral sciences, computation, business, executive, persuasive, linguistic, humanistic, artistic, musical. Okay. And then item 100 pairs of occupation. Then time 10 minutes. So dali ra ni siya nga test. Next test is the personality test. It is considered as an important instrument to test the personality of the applicant, especially for supervisory and managerial positions, as they have to relate with their co-workers in the industry. So, if mag-hire ka og supervisor and above, you have to have a personality test. Kaya nga no, supervisor handles people. So, if you are not able to handle people, if you cannot cooperate, if you cannot what you call that, kana bitang makisama or if you don't have command over people, uh, dili ka pwede ma-supervisor, di ka pwede ma-manager. So example ani, there are several examples actually of personality test, but the top three are the 16 personality factor questionnaire, the Comrie personality scale or CPS, and the Edwards personal preference schedule. My example here is the Comrie personality scales. The proponent here is Andrew L. Comrie. And age is 16 years old and above. And then the variable, there are a lot of variable. The trust versus defensiveness, orderliness versus lack of compulsion. So, muna yung gipangita. Social conformity versus rebelliousness. Activity versus lack of energy, emotional stability versus neurotic, di ba? Sound mind ba siya or napay siya pagka, neurotic. Extroversion versus introversion. So extrovert, kana mga extrovert and introvert. Extrovert is kana bitang good sila with makihalubilo with other people, while introvert they are mas kuan ra sa silang kaugalingon. Empathy versus egocentrism. So empathy kana bitong you naisad. So murag kung wala kay empathy like sad siya, imo pa siyang ulit-uliton, sige pa siyang katawa, di ba? Sige pa kag bugal-bugal. So you don't have empathy. So empathy is parang you have to empathize. Wa ko kuan sa Bisaya ani, but mo na siya. And then masculinity versus femininity. Femininity. Items, there are 20 minutes each, total of 180, and no time limit. So, next is the achievement proficiency test. Example is Flanagan industrial test. It tries to this type of test tries to measure your applicant's knowledge of a given job. It tries to eliminate the trade bluffers who profess to know a particular type of work. Ang mga gitawag nga trade bluffers kana bitang oh kamao ko ana pero dili siya kamao ana bitaw kana bitang magpa-impress lang para ma-hire. Nya pag abot day na hire na siya, di man ko kamao ani magbagutbot kay gitagaan siya og trabaho nga di siya kamao. But in the interview, kamao daw siya, right? So mo na siya. This type of test will actually eliminate it will try no na dili siya 100% but it can eliminate trade bluffers. Okay, so those are the tests that you will be able you can do. You can choose just search this test, and this is what you can apply when selecting the qualified applicant. And then, what are the requirements for effective testing? Oh, we still have achievement proficiency test. Hmm. Okay, so that's it. Ito naman ang siyang gi-explain kanina. Right? What are the requirements? What are the requirements? Okay, wala siya na appeal sa akong slide. But what are the requirements for an effective testing? So, a test though can be made more productive and rewarding if it conforms to the following. So, it should be properly tested and validated. It should be used with proper discretion and used along with other instruments. And use a battery of tests to determine the person's real worth, and set the critical cutoff score in advance, and don't use raw scores, interpret them. No, right? So kasagaran kita ang raw score mo man ang kita 1 to 100, nakakuha siya 50 mo na yung raw score, but that is not the rate, that is not the weight of the score. Naa siya equivalent, so kintahay ang 1 to 100 you get 50, equivalent ana niya 75%. Okay, so mo na imong pwedeng bahaton. And tests are test measures specific skills, knowledge, and abilities are the most useful selection test. So katudang mga test nga nag-measure og specific skills, knowledge, abilities mo na pinaka-useful nga selection test. Personality and honesty are important, but tests provide little help in evaluating these characteristics in a selection setting. And interaction with applicants, especially during the interview, can be a more useful means of evaluating attitudes and personality. So, pag interview nimo, you have to interact with your applicant para mag-gauge nimo unsa gyud iyang personality. Okay? So, on the fourth process of selection, we have the in-depth interview. So, mo na ni. This is the most important part of the selection process because after passing all the tests required, the applicant is now ready to formally enter into the selection process. So, nahuman na ang test. Usually, manggod na pag mga apply ka is unahon ang mga test, makuha sa kag mga test. Katong mga gi-mention na to ang mga test kanina. After that, then the interview. Okay? So which is the very important part of the process. And there are three important characteristics that the interviewer must possess. So unsa may dapat nimo i-possess when you do interview? Number one, you should have knowledge. Okay, so you should have a better understanding of the psychology of the person is an important factor in the interview. So dapat na kay better understanding unsa man yung mindset niya, unsa man ang iyang psychology. So you, as an interviewer, must know the behavior of the person and must be able to determine and decipher the answers to questions as he may take down important details during the interview process. Right? He must be able to relate the qualities and qualifications of the individual according to the needs and culture of the organization. So this is referring to you, as an interviewer, as a manager. So you have to have a better understanding, no, sa behavior sa person. Then next is you must have empathy. So you as interviewer must be able to discover the inner behavior of the individual by understanding his own personality and relate this with the feelings of the applicant. So you are able to relate the feeling to the applicant. Dili ka robot, dili ka sa pa na siya, dense kaayo nga wa kay na feel. No, naghilak na siya, nagkatawa pa ka, right? So you have to have empathy. Next is you should have a good communication skill. Dili pwede nga mas maayo pa magyaw-yaw ang imong gi-interview kaysa sa imuha. Naglisod kag throw sa question to your interviewee. Siya pwede. The interviewer must have facility of communication, which means that you have to have the use of the language, no? You should also have gestures. Gestures, kanang mga expressions sa imong noun, imong kamot, and voice inflection. Right? So kung question mark ang nasa tumoy sa sentence, dapat ang imong tono pa question mark. No, dili siya question mark pero pababa ang imong tono. So ingana ang pasabot sa communication skills. Words must be carefully chosen to put the individual at ease during the interview and draw from him the inner self that is necessary to fully assess the individual's fitness to the job. Okay, so dapat careful ka sa imong words. The questions must be clearly stated, and the interviewer must be a good listener in order to evaluate the desired personal characteristics of the individual. Right? So you have to be clear, and you also have to be a good listener. Di kay nagtubag siya pag human wala day ka idea unsa yung gitubag. Alright? So these are the characteristics when you are hiring a person, when you are going through the selection process. The fifth stage of the selection process is evaluating references. So in evaluating references, references manggod are important in assessing the applicant's worth for the position. References to be credible must be checked with utmost confidentiality if one would like to get a true picture of the individual who would like to join the organization. So, kana bitong character references, mana siya, magput ka dito so you have to evaluate those. Generally, there are three kinds of references. Number one, academic reference. Academic reference, manggod, maybe requested from applicants who are new graduates, no? Kaya wala pa man kay experience. So you can wala pa may experience ang imong applicant. So you as a HR manager pag nakita nimo bagong graduate, you can ask for academic reference. And academic reference means that this can be requested sa schools na gikan sa school, right, together with the transcript of records. Okay, and it may also require, or it would also be necessary nga mag-include siya mga co-curricular activities, and then the students performance in college. Kaya diha man niya makita, diha man nimo makita kung unsa siya, kaya pa man siya experience, right? Next is the character reference. So character reference, it can come from some persons in the community that are familiar with the individual in their place of residence. So pag character reference, pwede na siya imong friend, someone from the community, or ang barangay captain ba na, o ang konsehal ba na, that can prove that you are a good citizen, no? Pwede po kang mangitag mga og barangay clearance nga. So now you know that ngano mangyayo og barangay clearance. That's actually part of the character reference, no? Mo na siya gina-require karon, barangay clearance, police clearance, ano siya. While this is little significance to your employment, but it is actually necessary, and it is in your advantage. Kay basin pa lang kriminal di ay ito, di ba? Kung wala ka na ngayong barangay clearance, so wala ka kahibaloon sa siya sa as a citizen. Next is the work or experience reference. So ang work or experience by the word itself, meaning this is a information about the applicant that is coming from the previous employer. Okay? It must be in the form of a checklist for the convenience of the person giving the information. So sometimes, pag mga kag work experience, mas okay tong naa kay ipadala nga form nga ila na lang fill upan para makuan sa imong mupasok sa imong unsa gyud gusto nimong mahibaw-an kaysa kanang sila pa ang mubuhat. Usahay man god ang mga employees mangayo og character work experience reference, dili sila mahatagan because busy ang ilang gipangayuan. So mas maayo tong na naka-i-provide para check-checkan na lang na sa previous employer, right? So those are the references that um, you have to look for. Okay, so depende kung nahanap siya experience. So it's either academic reference and character reference imong pangitaon kung wala pa siya experience or bagong graduate, or character reference and work experience if na siya experience. Okay, pwede na siyang combination. Then there are policy or guidelines in checking references, right? Na ay mga guidelines nga imong dapat i-follow. One is the reference should be used to develop the integrity of the whole selection process. Okay? So dili ka basta-basta na lang mag-check kay gusto lang nimo mag-usyoso, no? Imo lang siyang gi-stalk, right? So it should be to develop the integrity of the whole process. Second, for very important confidential positions, reference should be conducted on a face-to-face basis since the applicant may be reluctant to divulge significant information. So, kung naay mga confidential position, sa mga confidential positions like intahay, um, sa man na, sa bangko, no? Teller sa bangko. So, kinahanglan na siya na ay mga confidentiality man na siya. So, kinahanglan nimo ni i-face-to-face ang pagkuha sa reference. Or, pwede po nimong call, tawagan, pakipag-communicate ka so that you will be able to get information. Kaya nga no, ang kuan manggod, ang employee usahay, kinaiya man na sa mga Pinoy that they usually kanang hesitant sila mohatag og information. So, importante makuha na nimo. Third is, if face-to-face information is impractical, so kung dili pwede ang face-to-face, telephone inquiries should be used rather than mailed requests for information. So, kung dili pwede ang face-to-face, pwede mang magsuwat kag letter or pwede kang mag-phone. Pero mas advantage kung telephone inquiries. Kaya may kaistorya man yun nimo ang tao compared sa katong mail nga pwede siyang gibasura lang to, walay mo reply, etc. So, mo na siya. And then the fourth one, if in any kind of follow-up, inquiries should be in structured form to relate information to job and career requirement. So you have to send na kung na naka-structure daan imong pangutanon para murag checklist na lang ba, okay siya, no dili siya ani pwede, so na naka-checklist. And then number five is inquiries should discover the why behind whatever impressions are disclosed. Those who supply information may have their own biases and peculiar standards. Okay? So mga inquiries gini mo, it should discover, no? Behind kay naamang goy mga uban nga lain na siya batasan nya ang isa po okay na siya, so depende na siya sa perspective. So you have to dili ka pud pwedeng mokuha reference dito sa iyang best friend, or pwede siya pero not necessarily nga dito ra jud ka mag-rely. You also have to na ako'y naka-istorya nga ning gid siya nga actually credit man to kanang nagpautang bitaw sila niya mag CA man na siya. Kaya kining character reference mura man nig CA kung mangutang ka. Ang iya gidong the best gidong adtuan is ang kaaway sa imong gi-CA. No, kay didto man gid mo makita ang unsa gyud siya. Right? Okay, so those are the guidelines that you are going to follow. And then what's next is we are on the sixth selection process. So the sixth is the physical examination. So on some is, of course, medical examinations. And why are the medical examinations important? Number one, so that we can screen out those physically incapable of doing the job. Diba? Kay kinahanglan nimo og kintahay example, kinahanglan nimo og PE teacher nya ang imo di ay kuan kay naay sakit sa kasing-kasing no dali ra makuyapan or epileptic, so dili siya pwede. So that's why we have medical examinations. Um, next is to prevent hiring of people with communicable diseases or who are influenced by drugs. Right? So, communicable meaning makatakod or kadtong mga drug addict. And then next is to prevent employment of those with high incidence of absenteeism due to illness or accidents. So, para makuha nimo kay tahay, ah, paggawa sa test result, kuan siya na ay siya sakit, no? So, posible na siya nga mag-cause na siya, sige lang siya absent, right? Next is ward off unwarranted claims with workers' compensation, SSS, medical care, and suits for damages. Okay, kay posible man nila nang gamiton para kasuhan ka para mag-claim sila mga SSS, pension, medical care, etc. So, um, kuan man na, usually the companies have health cards, health insurances. So para makita na nila nga unsay posibleng mga gastuhan or malikayan nila ang mga posibleng mga dagkong gasto because of the health issues. Okay? Then the last one is the placement. So placements, the applicant now has already finished the line, no? Human na siya ni tabok sa mga hurdles na imong gibutang. The applicant is now formally introduced into the group and undergoes an intensive orientation and induction program. So this is what you are going to do. Na-hire na nimo. So therefore, imo na siyang i-introduce sa group, imo na siyang matagad orientation, mo na siya, mo na'y placement. So, then you are now going to identify unsa man ni siya nga klase nga employee. So there are five types of employees. No, asa nimo siya ibutang? Number one, probationary. So pag may untang probationary, kaya kini nga employee can be terminated if he does not pass required reasonable standards in the performance of the job or there exists a just cause for his termination. Okay, so mo ni mga probationary, mura bag naka-testing lang ka, but swelduhan na giswelduhan na nimo, but they are still on probationary. They might be terminated if wala sila nakapasa sa standard, if wala sila nakaabot sa quota, etc. Right? And um, the probationary period usually is 6 months. And then after 6 months, that period, according to the Constitution, after 6 months, the employee is deemed a permanent or regular employee. Ana magina siya dapat. After 6 months, kuan na kanang regular employee, but lain na po na siya nga topic nga dili man gyud siya regular, di ba, kanang mga na end of contract o pahuway sa kag 2 weeks then apply kag utro para dili siya mahimong regular. Mo man uso sa uban, 5 months pa lang, mag-end na ang contract nya balik na pug ka, so dili siya ma-regular. Pero that's another topic, that's not our topic now. Next is regular or permanent employee. So, mo ni siyang mga employee na na-pass, na kapasar sa probationary period, and they are performing regular activity in the business of the company, covered in the regular company staffing system, and they also receive the benefits, no, sa company as a regular employee. Next is contractual employee. So, on sa maning contractual employee, they are hired to for a fixed period of time or a specific project of the company. So, mo na yung mga project-based. So, say for example, ang land bank, nanginahanglan sila, last time, nanginahanglan sila og mga contractual to assist in issuing the new ATM nga na ay EMV chips. So mo na to siya provisionary. Kadali lang siya pag nahuman ang project then tanggal na pug ka, right? Wala na ka. Next is casual or seasonal employees. Kini silang mga casual or seasonal, they are hired for a particular work or service that is seasonal in nature. No, employment is temporary according to the volume of work. Kasagaran, pinaka-example ani ka ng mga i-hire during Christmas season or Valentine season. Kanang may ana ba nga nanginahanglan og daghan tao ana nga time. Then after ana nga season, wala na pug ka. Mag-end na imong contract. Last one is apprenticeships. So apprentice, kanang mga apprentice or OJT pwede. So kining mga apprentice nga mga employees, they are developed or they are trained to develop the required skills for a particular type of work. No, kanang murag sa OJT ninyo. So kung food tech mo dito mo mag OJT sa na ay mga related sa inyo para to develop your skills. Some may come from on-the-job training required for students to graduate with certain degree. Okay, so from on the job, naiuban man gud nga company nga katay ang CSU mag-send og OJT sa ilaha sa ila in apprentice nila nga dawaton, meaning na siya ginadawat gihapon nga sweldo na at the same time nag-eskwela siya. Alright? So those are apprenticeships. Okay, so I hope everything is clear. These are the things that you are going to consider when hiring. No, sa inyong activity, for the final activity, you have to use this and the previous chapter to successfully make it. So if you have any questions, you know where to find me.